Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Metropolitan Report Live. I am your host, Alfred Parsard Jr., and unfortunately, it is not a good time to be a Mets fan. Today is September 23rd, 2025, and before I get into this unfortunate turn of events, just got to remind everybody, if you like the show, whether you're watching on Facebook Live, you're watching on YouTube, you're watching on Twitch, wherever you're watching, um, I appreciate the support. Make sure that you send this podcast to everybody else that you know that likes Mets baseball, and go down below, hit me with a subscribe on YouTube, get me with a like, get me with a share, comment sound off below, and yeah, let's go along for the ride. But not a good time to be a New York Mets fan right now. The New York Mets, 6 games left, ladies and gentlemen, including the first of a 3-game series against the Chicago Cubs, who have already clinched their own wild card spot. Just got swept by the Cincinnati Reds, who we'll talk about in just a couple of seconds. But this Mets team struggling mightily. Uh, I'm at a loss for words of how it even got to this point. But the last time we left you guys, we did a show 11 days ago. And in that time, the Mets, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I honestly don't know what happened. We did a show pregame before the Texas Rangers series last weekend. The Mets lost that series 2-1, but then they had a series win over the Padres, who just last night clinched their own playoff berth. Then to lose 2-1 to the Washington Nationals. And now we're here where we're at. 6 games left, 3 against the Cubs, 3 against the Marlins. As things stand right now in the standings, the Mets are tied with the Cincinnati Reds, both at 80 and 76 for the final wild card spot. But that doesn't mean the Mets get in, because if they end the season tied with Cincinnati, Cincinnati owns a tiebreaker, since head-to-head they've beaten us more times than we've beaten them. So if the season ended today, Cincinnati is moving on to the wild card round, and we're going home. Also, not to mention, things can get interesting because the Arizona Diamondbacks are 1 game below both the Mets and the Cincinnati Reds. The Diamondbacks, 79 and 77, they can sneak in too. But what has to happen, folks? The Mets must win more than they lose in this 6-game stretch. Now, again, the Cubs just got swept by the Reds. Hopefully, the Cubs, no matter what they do, the Brewers have clinched the NL Central. So there's no absolute way that the Cubs can catch the Brewers in the Central. The Padres are 5.5 games back of the Cubs. I don't think the Cubs are going to lose that first wild card spot. So hopefully the Mets can catch a sleeping Cubs team and take advantage of them. We want to look at the Cincinnati Reds schedule. Cincinnati Reds, they have 6 games left, 3 against the Pirates starting tonight, and then they end the season this weekend against the Milwaukee Brewers. The Pirates, nothing to play for. Maybe they might want to play spoiler. I don't think the Brewers are motivated to try to win any more games. Of course, last night they lost to the Padres. Padres come from behind victory there. But it's looking murky for the Mets, if I may say the least. The Mets, again, 3 games starting tonight against the Chicago Cubs, and then they end their season with a weekend series against the Miami Marlins. And in seasons past, this Miami Marlins club, or previously the Florida Marlins, have always played the Mets tough, especially when they've had nothing to play for themselves. It's not going to be easy. This Mets team, and normally here on this program on the Metropolitan Report, again, I'm Alfred Parsar Jr. Thank you guys for the view, whoever's watching this live. The Mets, we want to look at the pitching lineups for today. We usually don't look at the schedule until the end of the show, but with 6 games remaining, this is the most important thing right now. David Peterson's going to take the hill against the Cubs. He'll go up against Cade Horton. Peterson 9-6, 3.98 ERA. Horton 11-4, 2.66 ERA. So Chicago throwing out one of their best pitchers today. Tomorrow, the young kid Jonah Tong, 2-2, 5.94 ERA against Matt Boyd, 13-8, 3.20 ERA. No Mets announced starter for Thursday. But the Cubs are throwing Shota Imanaga on the hill on Thursday. He's arguably their ace. So this is not a good time to run into the Cubs at all. And then on Friday, the Mets turn around with a trip to Miami to end the season. No Mets starter announced, but Sandy Alcantara will be on the hill for the Marlins. And nobody announced to pitch either of the other 2 games. Again, very, very crucial stretch here. How did we get to this point? The Mets, prior to June, were one of the best teams in baseball, one of the hottest teams in baseball. And I again, it seems like once mid-June came around, that happened to be it. That really happened to be it. It's a sad turn of events. And quite frankly, and I dare say it, the team is just not built for October. When you look, and is one person, the first person that takes the blame is David Stearns, and I've said it ad nauseum on this program throughout the season. David Stearns, if he went into a mall with a credit card, David Stearns would be the guy. Let's say he was going Christmas shopping. He'd be the guy digging through all the bargain bins, doesn't want anything expensive, or tries to get something that he thinks is good for as little money as possible. Look what he did to fill out this rotation this year. Griffin Canning, who was good, but had he been healthy all year, I don't know if he would have kept pace. But Griffin Canning, Frankie Montas, he got Sean Manaea last year, but it seems like everybody who caught lightning in a bottle last season, the Reed Garretts, the Huascar Brazabans, the Sean Manaeas in that pitching staff, they're no good. Sean Manaea can't even make it to 4 innings. You want to talk about Sean Manaea? And I was very disgusted with what I saw on Sunday out of Manaea. Sean Manaea on the season, 58 innings pitched. He's got 71 strikeouts, not too bad. But 2-4, 5.59 ERA. You look at the game logs. Let's take a look at his month of September. September 1st. September 1st against the Detroit Tigers he goes 5 innings in that outing. No, sorry, he didn't go 5 innings. He went 3 2/3, gave up 5 runs on 8 hits. Against the Phillies, September 9th, he went 5 innings, 4 runs on 5 hits. Against San Diego, September 16th, Manaea actually was the winning pitcher of record. He went 5 innings, gave up 1 run on 4 hits. And then in 3 innings on Sunday against the Nationals, a team with nothing to play for, by the way. A team that's had nothing to play for since the very first day of the season because they knew they weren't going to go anywhere. He went 3 innings, 3 runs on 4 hits. is just Struggleville for Manaea. I understand he was hurt most of the year. I understand that Sean Manaea, who everybody loved because he was such a key contributor down the stretch and in the postseason last year. But this is not last year. This is this year. And Sean Manaea has been a disappointment. I understand he missed all of spring training. I understand he had the oblique issues and the arm discomfort. But at what point do we say enough is enough? We've seen enough. The beginning of this season, the expectations were very high for this Mets team. And I said it in spring training when we were talking about Paul Blackburn, and I'll say it again now. With a team that is expected to be a postseason player, there is no time to rehab guys along. There isn't. There is no time to rehab guys along. There is no time to let guys heal up and have them have their rehab outings in the majors. We saw Frankie Montas and Manaea both get roughed up in Syracuse and Binghamton this season on rehab assignments. Why do we not just believe these guys when they tell us who they are? Granted, Manaea last season had a great season. But the whole team, Cinderella story. From him to Severino to Brazoban to Garrett to JD Martinez to Jose Iglesias. That 2024 OMG Grimace Mets team, okay, whatever. But the past is the past. The guy had one great year out of all the years of his career. Finally now, he's gone back to playing up to his baseball card. When guys have numbers on the back of their baseball cards, believe them. Believe them. Sean Manaea has been a disappointment this season. And you know what? Maybe joke's on me and all the other Met fans out there, because we all saw the Sean Manaea from last season and said, well, this guy's going to be good for us again this year. And we were wrong. Granted, he plays in a different ballpark now, but Luis Severino, Met fans, and myself included, wanted him back this season after a great year last year. He's in Sacramento for the Athletics, and he's become a human piñata. I don't even know what else to say, folks. But anytime I see Sean Manaea scheduled to start, I am nervous. And you see, Mendoza has flip-flopped with Manaea. 1 minute he's coming out of the bullpen. The next minute he's a starter. The next minute he has an opener pitching in front of him. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? I don't get it. Then you want to look at another guy in the rotation. Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes started this season phenomenally. But if you guys go back in the archive and you go watch previous editions of the Metropolitan Report, and I said it from back in spring training. I'll say it again. You cannot take a guy who was a closer for so long and just expect him to be a dominant starter overnight. It doesn't work that way. Arm fatigue is a thing. Let's take a look at Clay Holmes' numbers. And I like Clay Holmes. But it's concerning. The guy was a closer last season. Been a closer most of his career. Lost the closing job last season. And then you expect him to come to Flushing and just be this magical starter. This season, on the season, Holmes is 11-8, 3.69 ERA, 127 Ks and 158 and 2/3 innings. Look at his let's look at the month of September for him. He hasn't made it past 5 innings since August. September 3rd against the Tigers. 4 2/3 innings, 3 runs on 2 hits. September 10th against the Phillies, 4 innings pitched, 4 runs on 6 hits. September 16th against the Padres, 4 innings pitched, 2 runs on 3 hits. He walked 3 batters on September 3rd and 10th. He walked 1 on the 16th. And then Sunday against the Washington Nationals, he came in the game in relief. He pitched a great relief outing, 3 2/3 innings in relief, no runs on 4 hits, but he didn't start that game. He came out of the pen. And for the month of September, Holmes is 0-2 with a 4.41 ERA. I'm not gonna give him any grief over the relief appearance on Sunday, relieving Manaea against the Nationals, but those 3 starts are horrendous. Didn't touch 5 innings, not one time. On the September 16th start against the Padres, in a game the Mets won, by the way, he only made it through 53 pitches before he got pulled. I don't know what's going on with Clay Holmes. And that was a game the Mets won 8-3. He still couldn't go 5 innings with run support. Arm fatigue is a real issue. You look at guys, Hall of Fame guys, and even some guys not in the Hall of Fame, started as starting pitchers. And they had no issue taking roles in the bullpen and became some of the greatest closers the game has ever seen. Mariano Rivera, John Smoltz, Joe Nathan to a lesser extent, Kerry Wood, all guys who started off their careers as starting pitchers in the major leagues and transitioned into closers and were some of the damn best closers the game ever saw. The reason why the Yankees didn't want to hold on to Clay Holmes was because he said, I'm a starter. Mind you, he lost the closing job and his pride got the better of him. The Yankees said, we're not going to re-sign you. So we went and got him and we acquiesced and said, okay, we'll make you a starter, which was a mistake all along because we burnt his arm out. We burnt his arm out. And Jeremy Hefner and Carlos Mendoza burnt his arm out. And David Stearns, who thought he had a diamond in the rough. Well, all right, it's not going to cost us a lot. If it works out, it works out. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But he allowed them to burn his arm out on a team that needs as much bullpen help as humanly possible. You took a bullpen guy, a career bullpen guy, made him a starter, and burnt his arm out. Now he's broken. You want to look at Holmes in the career. Prior to this season, the man only started 4 career games. And all 4 of those games came in his rookie season in 2018 when he was a Pittsburgh Pirate. He never, not one time since 2018 before this season, started a game. And he's made 30 starts this season. How do you take a guy who hasn't started in 7 years, and just magically put him out there and say, all right, he's going to be effective? It doesn't work that way for everybody. Not everybody could be a Michael King or a Seth Lugo. And yet, David Stearns thought this was a good idea to fill out the rotation with guys like Canning and Montas and make Clay Holmes a starter. If you go back and you watch the very first episode of this podcast from spring training this year, I said I don't know how this is going to work out in the long run. Even when the regular season had already started and Clay Holmes was good, I said I don't know how sustainable this is because the man is not a starter. And has proven it because his arm's fallen off of a cliff. Then we want to look at a guy like David Peterson. Sure, David Peterson, first-time All-Star this year. Bravo. You know, the All-Star game, folks, for as much as I like our guys to get in the Midsummer Classic, it's in the midway of the season. David Peterson on the year, 9-6, 3.98 ERA. 149 strikeouts and 167 in the thirds innings. But lately, he's been horrendous. You want to talk about David Peterson? Since August, I don't know what's going on with David Peterson. Peterson in August went 1-1 with a 6.68 ERA. There were he pitched five, he made 6 starts in the month of August. Failed to go over 5 innings twice. Again, 1-1, 6.68 ERA. In the month of August, he gave up 23 runs on 31 hits and walked 17 batters. 3 starts so far in the month of September. Obviously not including tonight because tonight hasn't happened yet. That's why this is a pregame show. September 5th against Cincinnati, a game that the Mets won, by the way. 5 1/3 innings, but still gave up 4 runs on 7 hits. 9-11 against the Phillies. In a game the Mets lost. 5 innings, 3 runs on 7 hits. And then against San Diego, September 17th, in a game the Mets magically won, by the way. Actually, no, a game the Mets lost. I apologize. Six earned runs on 6 hits in 5 innings. David Peterson, ladies and gentlemen. The All-Star. Mind you, is it even a true All-Star berth? He only got in because Robbie Ray didn't want to pitch because it was too close to his next scheduled start. David Peterson, another guy, solid first half. Come back from the break. Arms falling off a cliff. Arm fatigue for him too. And I'm shocked he has arm fatigue because he's been a starter his whole career. Which tells you it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. Ask Juan Soto. That guy got snubbed from the All-Star game, and look at him now. Granted, he rightfully should have been in the All-Star game, but we're not complaining. I will say, though, this is a career high in innings pitched for Peterson. Peterson's previous career high was last season, 121 innings pitched. This year, he's at 167 1/3 innings, and that's before his start in a little over an hour against the Cubs. So tonight, we'll put him over 170 if he could even make 3 innings. But Peterson, his arm's falling off of a cliff. This is arm fatigue, folks. Arm fatigue at its finest. This is what happens when you overwork guys. When you don't know when to pull them out of a game, Carlos Mendoza. Say whatever you will about Mendy as a manager, but one thing you cannot deny, yes, he is a guy the players like to play for. But at the same time, Carlos Mendoza horribly mismanages pitching. Horribly mismanages pitching. When David Stearns was first hired, you know what his first transaction was? To fire Buck Showalter. Now, some people will say, you know, how could you be mad? Because the first season Mendy was here last year. The team got to the NLCS. Yes, whatever. However, Buck Showalter in his first season with the Mets in 2022 won 101 games. 101 games. Granted, so did the Braves, but they owned the tiebreaker. So they won the division, but the Mets still made the playoffs that year. Had a bit of a down year in 2023. And as soon as Stearns got through the door, he showed Showalter his walking papers, his pink slip. Why do I have an issue with this? Because in the man's first season, 101 games won. His second season, when the team just didn't perform and there were injuries piling up, and the Mets became sellers, shipping off Verlander and Scherzer, they showed Buck the door, didn't even give him another season to see if that was just an off year or it was a consistent thing. Far worse managers in the history of baseball have gotten much longer leashes in the past. But yet, Mendoza will probably not get fired at the end of this season if the Mets don't make the playoffs. And he'll get another opportunity next year to see if he was a fluke manager last season or he's a consistently good manager. Granted, if the Mets finish above 500 this season, he'll have 2 seasons in a row of finishing above 500, yes. But Mendoza, a pitcher could be in trouble. He could have already given up the lead, blown the lead, given up the go-ahead run, and Mendoza will still leave the man out there on the mound to try to figure it out for himself. Say what you will, folks, but I don't like how Mendoza and his eye for pitching is. And he has one of the better pitching coaches out there in Jeremy Hefner, but Hefner can only do so much because Mendoza calls the shots at the end of the day. Then you want to look at a guy like Kodai Senga, who I know has not been on this roster as of yet, or lately, I should say. Kodai Senga performed so badly that when they called Brandon Sproat up, they sent Senga down. Kodai Senga was scheduled to have 2 starts in AAA Syracuse when he got sent down. Senga hasn't seen a major league mound since August 31st. And he was deemed not ready to return to play Major League Baseball. Not ready to return to the majors. It's not like he got hurt and they put him in the minors for a rehab assignment. He was not playing up to par. They put him down in Syracuse to see if he could work out whatever kinks he needed to get out. And still, it wasn't good enough. I don't get it. Last week, Thursday, Senga pitched in AAA Syracuse, gave up 4 runs in 3 2/3 innings. And then Senga told the Mets front office himself he's not confident in a major league return. He said he needed another outing before he would feel confident in returning to the majors. But you know what the issue is? The AAA season just ended on Sunday. So what outing can Senga have? The season in the minors is over. At this rate, if the Mets even make the playoffs, I wouldn't even want Kodai Senga on the roster because he himself doesn't believe in himself. When have you ever heard of a player that got sent down and he's supposed to be the ace of the staff, or at least one of the better pitchers in that rotation, and he says to the front office, I'm not ready to come back yet. I don't think I'm ready. Can I get another rehab? Can I get another opportunity in the minors to prove myself when there is no more? In the first half of this season, Senga was 7-3 with a 1.39 ERA over 14 starts. But ever since that hamstring injury he had, winless with a 6.56 ERA in that time. He's fully healthy. So where is the inconsistency coming from? 2 starts in Syracuse since he got demoted September 1st. Gave up 5 runs on 9 2/3 innings. At this point, if you even make the playoffs, which I guess we can't even speculate until we cross that bridge, but if you do get to the playoffs, do you even include Senga on the postseason roster? If it were me, and I'm Carlos Mendoza, and I'm David Stearns, and we have a discussion with Steve Cohen, I am excluding Kodai Senga off of the postseason roster. You want to look at his postseason history? Yeah, he shut down the Phillies in the NLDS. Yes, that's true. But got bombarded by the Dodgers. And you expect a guy who hasn't had a win since how long? Let's see. You expect a guy who hasn't had a win this season since June 12th to pitch on our playoff roster? I think not. Shut him down. Tell him sit down and watch the festivities and watch the games and be a good teammate and clap from the dugout and cheer from the dugout and watch what's going on. And we'll try to get you right starting in spring training, because this team with 6 games left this season to try to make the playoffs, there is no time to babysit and hold hands and try to say, oh, Kodai, let's go out there and see what you got. No, because the season is on the line and we need to make the playoffs or this season was a flop. And Kodai Senga is part of the problem, just like Peterson and Holmes and Minaya and Montas was. Talk about falling off. My goodness. I'm getting mad thinking about this. All those times I sat in Citi Field this season, before mid-June, I felt great. Parts of July, great. August, September, what are we doing? Senga falls off a cliff so bad they send him down. Montas got sent to the bullpen before, thank God, he tore his UCL. Yeah, I said it. Clay Holmes, arm fatigue. Peterson, arm fatigue. One guy, over 40 innings over his career high. The other guy hadn't been a starter since 2018, and look what they did to him. Made him a starter because he wanted to start. Granted, hindsight is 2020. But in this offseason, David Stearns really has to do something about this pitching. You got to get an elite starter. I don't care where you get him from, whether you trade for him, sign him in free. I don't care how you get him. But you have to go and get an elite starter. You have to go and get an elite starter. However you do it, you have to do it. Nobody knew that Corbin Burns was going to be out with Tommy John. But at the same time, how is it that Corbin Burns was the best starting pitcher available on the market, and David Stearns didn't even send him an offer? Then let's look at this lineup, right? I'm not mad at Pete Alonso. I'm not mad at Juan Soto. Not mad at Francisco Lindor. And at times I get frustrated with Brandon Nimmo, but I'm not mad at him either. But this roster construction was god-awful. Jose Siri, yeah, he was injured most of the year. But since coming back, has done nothing. Before he got hurt, did nothing. Tyrone Taylor was the everyday center fielder for a long time. Below average bat. Great speed and great defense, but you got to produce at the plate to win baseball games. Went out and traded for Cedric Mullins, who was a slightly worse left-handed Tyrone Taylor. Catcher situation has been a carousel all season. When Francisco Alvarez is not hurt, it's between Luis Torrens and Hayden Senger. I like Hayden Senger as a person. Great feel-good story. Cinderella story. Guy used to work at Whole Foods, made a major league roster, and never has to go back there again. But Cinderella stories don't get us to the playoffs. Torrens bat bad. Alvarez got sent down at one point. Has come back and shown flashes of what he could be, but he's nowhere near consistent. Guys like Ronnie Mauricio, who are seldom in the lineup these days, the Luis Angel Acuñas, seldom in the lineups these days. You see them more as pinch runners and defensive replacements. When they get opportunities, they don't do anything with them either. Jeff McNeil, who was a batting champion 3 seasons ago, inconsistent. Went from being a 320 hitter down to about 240. Brett Beatty is vastly improved from the beginning of the season till now, so I can't bash him. But in high leverage situations, doesn't come up clutch. Mark Vientos, who was a hero in Mets lore last season, second half player, doesn't get the hits when they're direly needed. It's like if it's not Juan Soto or Pete Alonso or Francisco Lindor or Brandon Nimmo, it's nobody. Oh, you know what? Who else gets credit? Starling Marte gets credit. You want to talk about a guy I can't be mad at? It's Starling Marte. And to believe David Stearns openly tried to trade this guy in the offseason and in spring training, and the team told this guy that they were looking for a trade for him. And you know what? Knowing how David Stearns operates and sees things, he probably would have traded Starling Marte for a bag of peanuts and a coffee machine. Starling Marte doesn't play every day, but when he does play, he's effective. 280 at-bats this year, batting .279, 9 homers, 34 RBIs, and 7 stolen bases in limited opportunities, but an OPS of .771. On-base percentage, .346. Doesn't get to play. You didn't want him. But when he does get an opportunity, he does well. And that's the guy that you didn't want, that you wanted to ship out of town for God knows what. Certain guys we can't be mad at. But anyway, the Mets sort of control their own destiny. I firmly believe that if this Mets team can go 5-1, just 5-1 in this 6-game stretch, they'll be okay. Four and 2 even, they might be okay. Remember, the Reds play the Pirates in a 3-game series tonight. Then they play the Brewers. The Mets are going to need the Pirates and the Brewers to help them. But the Mets, more than anything else, have to make sure that they win. They have to win. And remember, the Diamondbacks are creeping too. The Diamondbacks tonight, they play the Dodgers. That opens up a 3-game set. They finished the season playing the Padres. So 2 teams that have already clinched could help the Mets too. The Mets just have to win. Win and worry about everything else later. If you can win more than Cincinnati wins in the final 6, you're in. It's going to come down to whether this Mets team wants to get in or not. We know that Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso, the Starling Martes, the Brandon Nimmo's, the Edwin Diaz's, we know that they want to win. But we know that they want it. The fans, we want it. But does the rest of the team want it? Folks, this has been another Metropolitan Report Live. I've got 3 baseball games to watch tonight. Mets, Cubs, Reds, Pirates, Diamondbacks, Dodgers. And I think this Mets team and us as a fan base, we need a miracle to reach October. Metropolitan Report podcast on YouTube will be bringing you coverage throughout the week. Like, subscribe, leave a comment on YouTube. Subscribe on Twitch. You see all the handles. X, Instagram. Give us a follow. And again, we need a miracle. And hopefully, miracles become reality like 1969. And I'll leave you guys on that. LFGM.